a money wound is more of an emotional rupture that happens to your sense of security, your sense of worth, your sense of lovability, belonging. That affects your ability to save money, spend money in intentional ways, invest it in intentional ways for your growth, just being mindful with it. It usually looks like when all the doing doesn't work for you, the next question is, what do I need to heal?
Welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. My name is Talia Joy, and in this conversation, I am sitting down with Nadine Zumot, and we are talking all about money. Nadine is the creator of the Money Healing podcast, the Money Healing Blueprint, and is also a trauma-informed money coach and spiritual money mentor who empowers her community to heal their relationship with money so that we can create the most abundant and joyful experience. You are going to want to hear all of the powerful things that Nadine shares in this episode. She shares a lot of the hacks, the main money blocks and traumas she sees people experience in her community, how to move through them. Her own story with money and what she has overcome is incredibly powerful, and I just love hearing about her method of healing your way into abundance, being aware of this energy and what is causing you resistance. I know that you are going to love this episode. There's going to be so much in it for you. I know that this is what we are all about on this show. So make sure to check the links in the show notes for the resources that Nadine talks about. You can also find her on social media. And without further ado, let's just jump into it. Let's welcome Nadine onto the show. Hey Seeker, welcome to the Awakening Her podcast. I am so grateful that you've been led here, and I'm excited for you that you're answering the call to manifest more magic in your life by mastering the law of attraction. So cool. My name is Talia, and I'm committed to cutting the fluff and showing you exactly how to manifest more excitement, ease, success, abundance, confidence, love, and anything else you've been craving. So if you're ready to crack the code on manifestation, amplify your intuition, and play in the quantum, we are now besties. Let's do this. Hello, Nadine. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today? How's it going?
It's going great, Talia. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed our little chit chat in the beginning, and I'm looking forward to diving in with you today.
Yeah, this is so good. So we talk about money every once in a while. I do an episode. We've had a couple people in, but I find it such a dynamic conversation. And I feel like your take on it is going to be so unique. I can't wait to talk about the money wounds because everybody feels like, a lot of people feel like they don't know quite what's blocking them from money. I want money. I've done a lot of growth work, but why isn't it coming in? Right. So I can't wait to dive into all these things and hear your take. But before we do you want to just introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit about you, where you are, and just share with us your entire life and what has led up to this point.
Okay, so we've got 42 years.
Okay, year one. Let's go.
Year one. Okay, so my name is Nadine Zumot. I am originally from Jordan, from the Middle East. I grew up with lots of scarcity and a fair bit of financial abuse at home, but the scarcity was also from the outside because during the 80s, the Middle East wasn't a fun place to be in. There was lots of issues and wars and all of this. And it really impacted the way that I viewed money and also the way that my parents viewed money. And I grew up with that. And I grew up thinking that's normal. It's normal to be scared of money. It's normal to equate money to dad being money is the oppressor in my life. And miraculously, I managed to leave Jordan when I was 24, and I left to Australia. And the first year was cool. Second year, I was like, oh shit, this money thing is still bothering me. I thought I left dad, therefore I'm more free. But it kept haunting me. And obviously, what do? You look things up. But that was back way before the internet was a thing, right? So I thought the best thing to do is be very frugal, right? That's the best thing to do, because that's what we thought. We thought being good with money was saving the shit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That impacted the quality of my life. That impacted the way I viewed myself. And little did I know that what actually was happening was there was some deficiency in self-worth and in having a sense of security from the inside. I was outsourcing all of this. And yeah, the scarcity was there all the time. I wasn't living in the Middle East anymore. I was living in Australia. I had a relatively good job, but my insides were still reflecting my childhood. And then I got a calling in 2016, 15. It was a very clear message that I had to quit everything that I'm doing and help people with their money stuff. I'm like, okay, great. That means I have to work on my money stuff.
First, can I work on mine?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the part of it, is that work on your money stuff, because this is what you're supposed to be doing. And everything you're doing now, you need to leave. I'm like, okay. So I am an immigrant in Australia. Everything I had in my life was like built by my own two hands, whether it's my job situation, my friends, having a really nice apartment by the beach, and all these things. I wasn't just given these things. I really worked hard for them, only to hear that, okay, great, you had fun. Now you need to get ready for the next chapter. It was nuts. It was really nuts. And the other weird message was that I needed to be in New Orleans for it, not in Melbourne, in New Orleans. Oh man, I was like, all right, let's just. I went into like complete anxiety about this, but I knew I did what I knew best, which is budget. I kind of like went in and worked my life backwards. Like, when do I need to be in New Orleans? And I was told exactly the date and the time. And I was like, okay, that was 8 months from like the day I got all this information. And I worked backwards, and I realized that I needed about $30,000. I just needed to like create them. Like, okay, this is part of the test. This is part of the exercise. And I created a system that is very, very value-based, that enabled me to actually create that money by 24th of April. And off I went on a plane to New Orleans, open-ended. Like, fast forward a few years later, I went down many rabbit holes, only to find that what I had was money wounds. They were not going to be solved by budgets or financial strategies or affirmations or positive thinking or any of that. I went down the rabbit hole of archetypal work, inner child healing, nervous system healing, somatics, and all that stuff. And also, with the help of my guides, just creating a whole curriculum that takes people from like healing your money wounds, creating a strategy that's not like bullshit, like restriction based, and then working with your intuition to create the life that you want. So that's my life in a nutshell.
Oh my goodness. I love hearing just where life has taken you and these nudges. And I just want to acknowledge you for being brave, even when you're like, because it still is, I want to say, just an intuitive nudge, meaning we can ignore those things for a long time. You can choose to go, nope, no way, but you leapt. Yeah, you couldn't.
It was so loud. It was like, you go now, go now. I'm like, very loud.
Yeah.
So yeah. I understand. We can ignore them, but in my case, it was easier not to, it was easier not to ignore them and go with it, because it was just like loud, and I just had this knowing, and I'm very self-aware and honest with myself. So yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And just, I love that you're like, okay, let's figure this out. And then realizing that you had these wounds that were really controlling it underneath. And I was kind of chuckling, because I joke with my clients that like, oh yeah, you came to manifestation because you wanted like a new laptop, or you wanted a home, or you wanted whatever. And then you end up knee deep in an awakening, because you're like, then I went into inner child and somatics. I'm like, yeah, basically, right? We try to change one thing, and we're like, oh crap, there's so much more to it.
It was never about the trip. It was never about the laptop, never about the car or the house. It's always about the spiritual lessons that you were supposed to grow through on the way to, the human, the human-centered reward that you're after.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought that before where there's, I have, as with you, you have lots of clients and they have different sort of quote unquote problems or issues. Some clients are coming to me, love, relationships are so hard. Other ones, it's money, whatever, health.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think like, why? Because money was one that just never was easy. And I feel even now it's like, it only reflects the degree of my healing. So as I heal more, I get to welcome in more, but it hasn't been the easiest for me. But say love, it hasn't been an area I've struggled with. So I've thought sometimes, why money? Like, why was that something, especially when I was struggling? And I heard my guides one day go like, nothing keeps you growing like money. Like I've almost had to.
I got chills from that.
Yeah, because it's that desperation at times. I also have had 1, 2, and then 3 kids and a lot on the line. And it's like, I have to make this work. I have to figure this out. So now my growth isn't as desperate and graspy, but it really kept me going, okay, is it mom issues? Is it self-worth? Like what is going on, right? And it is, money will make you grow. If you're listening here and you're a seeker on the path, it has a lot of lessons here for us to learn and awaken through. And yeah, it sounds like it's been the same for you.
Yeah. I mean, that message in itself, that is the most powerful thing I've heard about money. It will keep you growing. Like I know from my perspective and my client's perspective, money is always the last Everest for them. Like, okay, I've done this, or like I'm okay being single or whatever. But money, it's always about money. It's always about money. And the thing about money is that, okay, so if it's a relationship, you go into a relation, you manifest the relationship, you're in a relationship, and then all you need to do is like keep working at it and keep opening communication channels and all of that stuff. But with money, it's always like what they say, like new level, new devil. I don't really like that. It has kind of a negative connotation. But what I'm trying to say is that you can open up, you can expand your receivership for like 10K months. But if you want 20K months, you need to even expand your receivership more, which means you need to remove more and more of these layers that are between your like soul, you, and the universe, right? Because everything you want is like just swirling around you, and all you need to do is be, but being is by shedding what you no longer, So by wanting more, you're actually really, really asking for more shedding. So
it's like, no, I just want the 10 grand. No, I just want the $100,000, whatever. It's like, no, your soul is asking for the next level of self-worthiness is almost like what I would say. I'd love to hear your take, because we're going to get into all this. But okay, so many things. What do you feel, just as we start to launch in, what do you feel is something that you see in a lot of clients? It's almost like money tends to come back down to this, or, where do we what are some of those common things that are actually blocking us? We'll just kind of start there. And yeah.
Of course. So it boils down to 3 things. It boils down to our relationship with abundance, our relationship with security, our relationship with how we perceive how lovable we are. And it all really like goes down to worth. Because when we believe that we are worthy of only this much, that is what is going to dictate our perception of scarcity versus abundance. When we look at like, this is my worth, and that is going to also dictate how much security you're able to provide for yourself. When you're outsourcing your security to something like money, something like your client, something like your boss, your business, that is also like just an indication that there is a self-worth situation. But that doesn't mean that you're weak or there's something wrong with you. The way that we internalize how worthy we are is very determined by our childhood. Because as children, we have very minimal maturity and resources, right? We're not very, like our prefrontal cortex is not very developed. So we can internalize and misinterpret things, and then that can reflect back on how we see ourselves.
Absolutely.
So basically, it's just a reflection of how you perceive yourself. Your outside is a reflection of the inside. I'm sure this is something that everybody has heard of before, but it also, your money on the outside is a reflection of how you also perceive yourself.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing in the security piece, because when Spirit shared with me one day, like, it was something along the lines of self-worth equals net worth. Like, we even say worth, like money, this is worth this, right? Or this house is worth this amount. And then we self-worth, it's like worth equals worth. And I had never thought of it like that, like worthy or worthiness being like your net worth and anything being connected, which is so interesting. But I love that you also bring in that security, because from something I've learned in this healing journey is so much of healing is becoming a safe space for yourself to have emotion, reaction, trigger, success, failure, whatever, being that safe space, which is kind of translating into safety and security. So I'd love to hear what you mean by that, creating security, safety, not outsourcing it.
The way I see it is that healing expands your receivership of yourself. The more you heal, the more you trust yourself to be there for yourself. The more you heal, the more you are there for yourself as the beautiful parent that you never had, regardless of, a lot of people say, but my parents did their best. Yeah, but they're humans. Humans. And also back in the day, our parents didn't have the luxury or the resources to look at their trauma or look at what's going on in their minds, because it was taboo back then, right? And they didn't have the time to even look at it. My mom she's an architect who had 3 children, and I mean, I don't think she had time to look at that stuff.
People didn't have life coaches. And
she didn't go on Instagram in 1990 and looked at the holistic psychologist, which made her think about how she didn't have these resources. So the more you heal, the more you are that solid resource of abundance and resilience and support for yourself. And the more you trust yourself, and the more you trust and see and allow yourself to receive your own love, which is a reflection of the love from the universe, the love from the God of your understanding, the more you will feel like there is no need to be scared. And the more you feel like there's no need to be scared, you will feel like everything is actually an opportunity and a gift instead of a challenge. And it's there for you.
Yeah. And it almost feels like it's trust. Like when you're saying you don't need to be scared, you kind of have that trust, because Spirit shows me a lot about like trust and faith are so important, but they're not the thing you start with. They're the byproduct of the work. You just naturally start. It's not like today I'm going to go out and really like gather some trust. It's like it kind of takes some time to trust yourself, to trust in the universe, to learn to trust others. And often that's healing, because most of us has been shown we can't trust, whether it's God, ourself, the law of attraction, or other people. We've been let down. We've been hurt, From
my perspective, working on trust is working on the relationship between your inner child and adult present day version of you. Because from the perspective of your inner child, it has been, they've been really disappointed by adults. And by working on a consistent relationship based on non-judgment, unconditional love and support, and also leadership between present day you and your inner child that, we've got several inner children or even inner teens. By working on that trust, that inner trust will become a reflection of the outer trust. And this relationship is very important. The relationship that you have between you now and the younger version, the younger parts of you. And it only will build with consistency. Like imagine meeting somebody in the street and you clicked. The only way you two are going to become like soulmates or best friends is consistency and creating disconfirming information, like disconfirming instances where yeah, I can trust that person, even if you're a little bit like suspicious of them, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, they rocked up when they said they were. Oh, they gave me the book that they said they were going to give me the book.
Mm.
So, sometimes when you grow up with a lot of wounding, you kind of start with like everybody's guilty until proven innocent kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's from a wounded inner child. We need to start building that trust using consistency and
Mm.
also the leadership of, okay, younger part, you got parentified because this and this happened and you're very brave. You can go back and play now because me, the adult, now I'm going to take over. You don't need to be scared anymore. You don't need to act out anymore, because when we do quote unquote sabotaging things, or especially with money or whatever, it is really a younger part of you that's acting out. And when
Mm.
you start establishing that trust and establishing leadership from a place of compassion, that is going to fade away with time.
Mm. Yeah, I love that because you're kind of addressing the subconscious component, but then there's also the conscious component. And I go through this, and this example isn't really to do with money, but I'll have, wounding. I've shared on the show about like I've been let down, I've been abandoned. So it's almost like no one's really going to care at the end of the day. They're going to turn their
Yeah.
back on you or whatever. And I'll be in this situation where someone's saying like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you," or they're really going against this narrative inside that nobody really cares. And I'll be sitting there going like, take it in, brain. They're saying, you can see them, they're genuine, they love you, you're important. And my inner child's going, well, they might just not be, and who knows? And I'm like, no. And I call it reparenting, but it's in the moment. Take it in, brain, take a snapshot, because this is real. The emotion is real, but it's not the fact of the matter. It's not the truth.
I so resonate with that. I have the exact same issue with like, yeah, whatever, they're just going to reject me. Yeah, whatever, they're just going to abandon me. So for me, because I really love somatic work, I try to take it in through my body, like locating where that pleasure feels in my body of hearing someone say that, and allowing myself to expand that window of tolerance for pleasure, that particular pleasure, in very small increments, because I understand it's very hard to believe something that you didn't believe was true for like decades, right? And the older you are, the harder it is.
Yeah. And with money, I mean, I love this because something that I did when I was really in the active reprogramming, which I always am, I think we always, are clearing and shifting. Yeah. But something I would do is I had a narrative around like money's hard to make or it's hard to bring in. So every time I got a payment, whether it was a $21 whatever or a $1,500 client, every time I would look at the notification on my phone or look at my bank account, and I'd go like, same thing, like brain, proof that money came in. Was it hard? Not really. They came to me, or I was just promoting, like, or whatever. It came overnight. Like, no, it wasn't hard. Okay, snapshot that. And I'll do that over and over. And I'll even do it with things like the grocery store. Like I go to buy something and it's 2 for 1. And I'll be like, look, brain, that was easy. You actually saved yourself $8 or whatever because it was 2 for 1. Money kind of just came in, or abundance, that frequency support. That was easy, wasn't it? Actually, yeah, that was easy. I came here for peanut butter. Like that's simple to kind of go, okay, ego, okay, wound, chill out a little bit. There is also proof in the other direction as well. So with our money wounds, I'd love to continue talking about this. If somebody's listening and going, okay, this sounds really great, but do I need to identify my wounds? How do I identify my wounds? How do I start the process from the ground up? Like I'm struggling right now. How do people sort of start that process of deconstructing their wounds or healing them?
So I'd like to start by defining what a money wound is, because if you go online and type it in, you're going to find a million other definitions. But I'd like to clarify what I mean by it so that we're all on the same page. So from my perspective, a money wound is more of an emotional rupture that happens to your sense of security, your sense of worth, your sense of lovability, belonging, that affects your ability to save money, spend money in intentional ways, invest it in intentional ways for your growth, or, just being mindful with it. And it usually looks like when all the doing doesn't work for you, the next question is, what do I need to heal? So if most of my clients come to me, like I have a lot of clients that are like CPAs, or even like they have finance in their as a major in college, and they're like, why can't I figure this out? And it's not about having the financial education, it's about really the emotional mastery. Because when you have a money wound, what happens is that your nervous system becomes highly activated when money is concerned. So if you've had any incident in childhood that affected, especially between the ages of like 2 and 12, where you're still like your nervous system is being developed, your prefrontal cortex and all that stuff is just very malleable and sponge-like. When we've had incidents that affected our sense of worth, security, lovability, and all the things I mentioned, we start internalizing money as a threat. And your nervous system, its job is to detect threat way under our subconscious awareness. So it scans our surroundings all the time, even when we're asleep. And when the topic of money is brought up, when there's a bill, when there's like whatever, even at the supermarket, sometimes you go into a stress response, meaning that you either go into fight, flight, freeze. And when that happens, your connection with your critical thinking brain, that prefrontal cortex, where all the financial education and the information and the logic and the reason is, you get cut off from it, because it is it's a very smart survival mechanism. So that's why we don't look at financial education first. We look at regulating the nervous system first from a perspective of healing. Okay. So it's not about just putting a band-aid on it of like, yeah, I'm nervous about money. Let's, jump up and down and regulate the nervous system. Yeah, that works on the spot. But we need to go back and see, yes, so I do believe that we need to go back and release the wound from its point of inception, because money wounds are not psychological, they're physiological.
Yeah. It's like safety, survival, trauma. Yeah.
It's all in the limbic system. It's all in the subconscious, and it's all living in the body, not the brain.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So just for an example with my story, because some people were brought up with like this, where my mom was a single mom for a lot. And I heard a narrative of money's really hard to make, really easy to spend. And it was this, like, she was single mom working hard. We had a farm, like she worked hard for it. And it was something that it looked like we kind of never fully had enough. So we did have enough. I ate, I had clothes. We were at the thrift store. We were like not wasting food, like very, mindful. So it wasn't a giant threat, like our house was taken away, but there was this constant feeling. And now I could say a lack of safety, but as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, I didn't understand. So in situations like that, where it maybe wasn't like my dad gambled all our money away, or we were homeless,
traumatic. Yes.
Yeah. But it was this constant. I also have heard of lots of clients that witnessed their parents fighting over money, just like, you spend this and we have to pay this, and they just observe it. So can you talk to that a little bit, when it's more subtle, but still very persistent, that narrative?
Is most of the things that I help with. So there is a distinction between like something traumatic happening with money, like bankruptcy, homelessness, like actual catastrophes. And that is obviously like, that's the obvious things, but the not so obvious things are the things that I mentioned, which are like anything that made you feel insecure, or like you're not as worthy, or you're not as lovable, or you don't belong. So a very common like scenario that happens is that sometimes the parents, they're like middle class, or whatever you call them, in the US, I think they call them middle class, where like you're not very rich, not very poor, just middle. So you're middle class, and your parents really work very, very hard to put you in the best schools. So no fault on parents, right? But what happens is that, first of all, your parents are working all the time. So you're like, oh, money is more important than me, because that's your level of maturity. But the actual thing also, what's happening is that you go to a school where everybody has things a little bit nicer than yours, nicer shoes, nicer books, nicer backpacks. You go to their houses for birthdays, and you're like, oh, wow, why is their house 3 stories high and I just live in an apartment? Like, you start internalizing things about your worth. So that is actually, trauma is not what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you. And I'm using this from Dr. Gabor Mate's research. I love reading his stuff. So trauma is not what happened to you. It's how your inside and how your nervous system internalized and interpreted what is happening outside of you.
Oh, it's so good. That's such a beautiful way of saying it. And I find myself saying that lately about, it's not about healing the one incident. It's about the residue it left. It's about the story it created that you've now been carrying with you for 5, 10, 30 years, right? It's not just, and that's why I think a lot of people avoid, and maybe you can speak to this, avoid healing work because they feel like, I don't want to go back to the event, or my childhood was too traumatic. I don't want to walk through the whole thing with you, right? And we don't have to walk through the whole thing, but when we observe the stories that were left, the impact, the emotional impact.
Stories. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, but one second. Did I answer your first question about, why non-traumatic things still affect our relationship with money? I feel like.
Yeah, we'll keep going if there's more.
No, but I just want to, feel like did that feel complete for you?
Yeah, it feels like what I took from it is that even if there isn't one catastrophe, there's this impact, there's this constant fear, there's these thoughts, right? And I heard a client one time say that she wanted to do cheerleading, and I think it was cheerleading and her parents couldn't afford it. So it was just like, no, we can't afford that. But then she constantly was seeing all these friends cheerleading, and it kind of like you said, you go to your friend's house, they're fancy, and there's this internal dialogue of either we don't have enough or
I'm not worthy for this. I'm not good enough like my classmates. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And I know I witnessed just the unease, I don't want to say dis-ease, but it was the dis-ease of my mom around money to no fault of her own. But it's like when we're making everything stretch, like that does start to be like, are we okay? Are we gonna, I didn't have I didn't comprehend, are we going to lose our house? But I kind of was like, are we, or wanting something your parents can't afford.
Like have this tendency to want to protect our parents. And that forces us to grow up very quickly. And that makes us into a parentified child in some way or another. And that will also affect our relationship with money. It's not just if your parent, if your mother, for example, was worried about something else and you still needed to protect her later on, that will still affect your relationship with money, even if that particular incident didn't have to do with money at all.
Interesting.
But to your point is that I do believe that we have to go back. But here's the thing. I don't think we need to go back on our own. I don't think we can, because our money wounds they're in our blind spot. I can't even do it for myself. I need my own coach and mentor to help me with certain tricky ones. Obviously, I can walk myself through them, but there are things that are like, I don't want to go there on my own. But I come from the school of thought of, no, we don't need to like dig for dirt, but we need to like dig for gold to release what needs to be released. And I believe in the power of the subconscious. I believe that you are not going to bring up something that is too big for you to be released now, because in essence, your younger parts, if you want to call them your shadows, your archetypes, the protector parts, they are not going to come out again to be rejected and shunned one more time. They're only going to come out when they know that you have the right support, the right emotional resilience and mastery to help them once and for all, because they were shunned once. They don't want to be rejected again. Not you, neither your parts want to be rejected.
Yeah. I totally hear that about not coming out until it's safe, which is why sometimes people on day one of the work, they're like, I need to get to all my wounds. It's like, it might take a little bit because you have to know it's safe or be in that space with somebody and that safe space. Because even a therapist or EMDR or something, you meet someone and all of a sudden you're going into your darkest traumas. There's people that might take 5 sessions to even get to because you don't yet feel safe. Your parts don't yet feel safe.
Yeah, I take a while. I honestly take a while. What about you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Because it's kind of like, well, how do I trust where this is going?
And can she take it? Like,
yeah, totally.
Can she take my weird?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. Okay, so with money, I would love to hear also about, there's a lot of the audience that have businesses, and that's a really tricky one as well, because when we talk about self-worth, we are literally putting value into what we do. We're the ones that have to create those numbers.
I know, right?
So if you have your own business and struggle with either increasing your rates or making the money that you want, I know for me sometimes, and it'd be interesting if this is similar for other people, when I feel blocked with worth, even ideas, like it's not just about upping my rates and upping my rates. It's like the ideas aren't as easy to, and then they don't land as well. And it's like, what is going on? So I would like to hear you talk to that for us with businesses wanting to make more money and attract more.
I would love to, as a business owner myself, who started off with a lot of like fear of uncertainty. So I look at everything. I don't know if you noticed this trend about me, but I look at everything from the lens of the nervous system. Okay. So when we are in survival mode, when we are like our sense of worth is triggered, our nervous system will go into fight, flight, freeze, even fawn. What happens is we are cut off from the creative mind, like we were saying earlier. That's why we can't even create or be in touch with our like yummy creativity side, right? Because we are literally cut off from it because we're in survival. And when it comes to raising our prices, myself, even in the beginning of my journey, I would raise my prices and then I would feel really scared and I would just like sabotage myself on sales calls. I'm like, this is too high and I'm just going to say it because I have to. But like raising your prices needs to be a little bit incremental because it's all about the nervous system. So to answer your question is with a regulated nervous system, all uncertainty becomes possibility and opportunity. With an unregulated or a dysregulated nervous system, even opportunities become an opportunity to be dysregulated or like confirmation of like how worthy you are in a negative way. So I would say that every entrepreneur out there, their first and foremost full-time job is to regulate their nervous system. Because from the regulated nervous system, from that place of ventral regulation, everything is open for you. I always say your portal for abundance is your regulated nervous system.
I love when you say that a heightened nervous system, or when you're, in that stress, that you're cut off from your creative mind. I love this stuff because I always say like, we don't create from panic. Like our mind goes, oh shit, I got to make more money because, I need this and I need this. Okay, I'm going to put out a program and it's going to be, and I always say to my entrepreneur clients, like, that will never work. It could be the greatest idea, but we can't react to our stress and our narrative and our ego in that moment freaking out with the solution and then push forward a new business venture. It's like, no. We need to be in receiving mode to receive creative ideas, hear our intuition or experience our intuition. And that's what you're saying is like, when we're in that stress, we're cut off from our creativity, and anything we create in that place is from panic or hustle.
Reactive.
From reaction.
Yeah, exactly. So like creativity versus reactivity. You just said something and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe she said that. I don't know. Something you said just really resonated and made me like, it's so cool. I can't remember what it is now, but it was really great.
Awesome. Yeah. Because I've done all of it, just straight up being real. I have definitely created things. Maybe the first 5 years of my business was like, what should I create? Oh my gosh, I have to make money. I have to do this. And it was good stuff. And every time I create, I get into channeling mode, like creating guidebooks, creating slides. However, the base of everything was lack. And I'd love, even if you talk about that, whether somebody has a business or not, but when the base of your desire to make money is lack, how far can we get? That's my question.
A very cool question. So the way I differentiate it is, are you manifesting from your soul or are you manifesting from your wounds?
Mm.
So if you're manifesting from your wounds, you are in some sense manifesting from lack. You are manifesting things that are going to take you out of pain. You're manifesting because on a subconscious or maybe even a conscious level, you are trying to prove your worth to yourself, prove your worth to your high school friends, even though you're not in touch with them, in your mind. Prove your worth to this, prove that you are worthy of having a business, prove that you're abundant. That is actually just asking for more growth in some way. And that's what you're going to be given. I don't know how you feel about the sentence, but I personally believe that the universe gives you what you need, not always what you want.
Absolutely.
So when you're manifesting from a place of scarcity, you're going to get what you need, not what you want, right? Manifesting from soul, that feels more yummy, juicy. It doesn't feel as urgent. It doesn't feel like, it can feel exciting, and it can feel like you have to do it now because of divine timing. But the urgency is like, it has a different nuance of urgency. You just have this knowing that it's for you regardless of when it comes, right? So it's a very different, like, I'm sacral authority, so everything feels like, oof, so yummy and sacral. Like, that's when I know it's my soul that's manifesting, instead of like coming from my brain or coming from my wounds of like, we have to do this, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I hear you. What do you actually need?
Yeah. I get really good at going, that's nice. I hear
That's
you.
really cute. I
It's
like
just
that.
like, that's nice. No, we like tomorrow we have to go out. That's nice. That's nice. And I did that in part of my eating disorder healing journey, where I would feel gross in my skin and I'd be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to cut carbs, and my mind would be reacting. And in that time when I wanted to really pivot it, but I still was kind of, a little bit hooked in, I'd go, that's nice, but we're just going to continue on and continue on the middle way versus that. But I love what you said about, we're reacting, and say with the money example, creating something to get out of pain, to get out of discomfort, because that discomfort of the bill in the mail, or you see how much you made this year and you're like, oh, I just want to be, I set these goals, whatever that discomfort is, or maybe even more serious, safety, security, all this stuff, we're then creating to get out of pain versus creating from your soul. And I just wanted to reiterate that, because I love that you said that. Are you wanting to make money to get out of pain? I want everyone to just get goosebumps and ask yourself, are you wanting to make more money to get out of pain? Are you trying to be a that'll show them millionaire? Or are you creating from your soul? Are you creating from allowing in what is meant for you? That's powerful, because probably all of us, it's like a little of both. There's times when it's a little of both.
Of course, you can still create from your soul to get out of pain. Sometimes you don't have the means to put food on the table. Sometimes rent is due and there's no money in the bank. There is still that point of discernment of creating from soul, but that has the element of trust to it, that it's going to be okay, and that you're always going to be looked after. But we all have financial pain regardless. Like, even when I have a lot of wealthy clients, funny enough, and I was very surprised in the beginning. I was like, why are you here? And I very soon learned that even when you grow up wealthy, you still have money wounds. And I once got asked on an interview, like, are all your clients broke? And I'm like, no, actually, they're making the best money of their lives. But that best money of their lives is not making them feel the worth and the security that they thought they would feel before making that best money of their lives. They feel worse. Because when you have a money wound, more money is going to amplify your wound. Simple. It's very logical,
and
right?
There's lots to be stressed about. Like, we have to pay more taxes, and then I have to manage my money, and how am I going to maintain my money? I remember that was
away.
Yeah, totally. I remember when I manifested my biggest lump sum the first time, and the next day I was stressed about money. And it was actually like, well, what am I going to do when this money goes? Because I have this bill and this bill, it's already slipping away. Then how do I manifest it again? And I was thinking, like, girl, you have the most amount of money you've ever had in your bank account. Take a minute, go out for dinner, like, chill for a second, pour a cup of tea and celebrate yourself. Like, no, I'm stressed about how I'm going to make it once it's gone. And that's the thing that you're saying is the wound will just show up. We all think that,
even more.
No, if I had this in my bank account, I would be stress-free, but the wound doesn't go anywhere. And that's the same with the body wound, if you don't like your body, you're going to even be worse off, or I was anyway, more critical when I would lose weight, because then I had to maintain it and then I had to lose more. Or you think if you get a partner, you're going to feel lovable. It's like, no, now you just have something to be stressed about. Like, what if they leave me? What if I'm so to say what you're saying, the wound will show up when, no matter
and then
what.
the disappointment is the worst, because you thought, I thought it was going to go away when I had the partner, when I lost 10 kilos, when I made a lot of money, and it's still there. Shit, there's something worse. Like, there's something wrong with me, The worst part is when we think that there is something wrong with us. And when we look at everything from a trauma-informed lens, from the nervous system perspective, we will see how everything, even though it sounds absolutely batshit, it's actually, everything makes sense when you look at your life in a holistic way. That's why I say I do holistic money coaching, because I help people look at their lives in its entirety, not just from the money perspective, and how every single relationship in their lives and dynamics between themselves, between others, between whatever, has affected their relationship to giving and receiving and money and all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. So something you said a minute ago, and I just was nudged to circle back. You said about, I forget what part of it we were talking about, but something about like when the nervous system, and you can kind of calm down and then trust that like you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
There was something that really stuck out, because I've heard a lot of clients go like, but I'm not okay. Like, I'm scraping by. I have to feed my kid. How do you, it's like learning to trust that you're going to be okay when you've had people abandon you or whatever. So with money, it's kind of an odd question, but it's like, what about when you feel like I'm not okay? Like I'm always in debt, or I'm always going into the negative. I'm not okay. Like, how do we kind of, because that is a very frazzled nervous system place. How do we kind of crawl out of that, or edge ourselves back into feeling and trusting we're going to be okay?
What happens usually is we're more panicked about how shameful we feel about the situation more than the actual situation. So a lot of times there is a deep layer of shame that needs to be, worked on. And I really encourage people to have a trusted person to talk to about these things, just to feel less ashamed. And it's not a trauma bond situation where like, fuck money. Yeah, fuck money. It's more like, I'm in pain and I'm really worried. And you don't have to fix me. You don't have to do anything. Just listen to me. Just find someone you trust and you feel safe with that listens to you, to talk about this without needing to change anything. That is going to first and foremost remove multiple layers of shame. And then the other thing is knowing that, yes, it is by theory that you're going to be okay, but you're not okay. And it's okay not to be okay, right? It's okay not to be okay. And asking for help in a way that's like being clear on what you need help with, asking the circle of people around you, like, what do you actually need help with? Do you need someone to mind your children while you go look for work? Do you want, are you always in debt because you don't have time to cook and you're just ordering food out? Like, sit down and regulate your nervous system and start looking at what is actually happening with the money, so that you can see what is the actual pattern, because most likely it is not just financial, it's more of a lifestyle thing that is affecting your sense of well-being. A lot of times we're not able to sleep well, we're not able to manage our time well, and that's all fair enough, right? Like, we're not here to say that everything needs to be perfect, but looking at it from a more bigger picture of what's actually happening, and ask for help in a way that is like clear, like, I need help with this. Or even if like I don't have money, for example, knowing exactly how much you need for the month. If you're gonna go ask somebody for a loan, for example, a friend of yours, whatever, instead of saying I don't have money, just say I am short by this amount, being very clear with yourself. And just that will give you a sense of empowerment, instead of feeling that you're powerless and you're always, like at loss of what you need. So becoming clear with yourself and just taking it slow. And that layer of shame is actually, it sounds like it's too simple, but it's so effective. Just being able to talk about it, voicing your feelings and your fears and being heard, that is amazing. And also there are resources out there that can help you. There are podcasts and there are people that can be of support. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That what, you know, that feeling of like, but I'm not okay. It's like that is more coming from yourself than from the actual money situation, not making light of real financial burden. It's scary when we have
Yeah, of
houses on the
course.
line or kids expenses, you know, it's scary. But I love that you kind of said that part of like, no, I'm not going to be okay is more from your nervous system. It's more from your mind, your trauma, your fear. And again, it's real, it's valid, it's understandable. But that really works for me, that kind of stuff where I go, okay, in my mind, I'm not okay. But physically, somehow I haven't been homeless yet. Or if I really get desperate, there's, you know, a parent or whatever it is. I mean, sometimes it can feel scary to even think about that, but just realizing that lack of safety, first and foremost, is within you, which kind of brings it back to what we were originally talking about being a safe space for yourself to experience that shame.
Yeah.
It's deep, but it's like, ooh, that's so juicy. A lot of times when we're like, but I'm not okay. Like you said, that shame is often the thing that's dominating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's really powerful. Oh my goodness, this is so good. So as we wrap up, I would love to hear anything left unsaid, anything you want to mention, your final thoughts on manifesting money, some of the most important things we have to really look at, think about. And then I would love to hear about how we can reach you as well.
Okay. So a lot of my work circles or centers around creating structures before creating the abundance, because a lot of times what I see is that we sabotage the abundance because we don't have the structures to hold it. And by structures, I don't mean a budget. I mean, yes, having a plan for your money that is very value and intuition and soul purpose based. But also, like if you are a business owner, for example, when you have an influx of clients, when you have an influx of money, that can cause dysregulation because we always think about, yeah, when this abundance is going to be great. But when something happens too fast, too soon for your nervous system, that is going to cause dysregulation. And to something that you said earlier, when you got your largest lump sum, you went into panic mode the next day. And that happened with me as well. I went from like, $3,000 months to like 10K, 18K days. And I was like, what do I do with this?
Quick, get rid of it.
Yeah,
Amazon.
well, I'm the opposite. My money wound actually looks like hoarding it.
Hoard it, yeah.
Where what I needed and what I worked on is having assistance, right? So having structure doesn't necessarily mean financial structures. It means having structures to hold that abundance. It could look like assistance. It can look like a better or a more like aligned schedule. So always look at the structure, because if you look at a cup, the water inside of it is not going to be held if there's no structure around it. It will spill on the desk and create chaos. So having that structure is not very talked about a lot, or actually it is, but it's talked about from a perspective of restriction and discipline.
Yeah, budget, don't spend.
Yeah. So like on one side of the pendulum, there's like the old school financial advice of like, don't spend, budget. The other side of the pendulum of like, fuck it, who cares? You're just going to manifest more. So find the happy, balanced middle that works for you. And if you were to work with someone on this, I personally believe don't work with someone that's going to give you their formula. Work with someone that will help you uncover your own formula. Work with someone that's going to help you find the guru that is within yourself. Don't work with someone because you put them on a pedestal as your inspiration or guru. Find someone that will get you closer to your soul and closer to your truth.
Oh, I love that. And I just had this inspiration with what you were saying about how we were talking about like, don't act from panic when you're trying to make money, or just distinguishing, am I trying to not be in pain, or am I actually creating for my soul? And then I kind of just thought also spending with that awareness. Is it about not experiencing pain? Like for you, spending might have caused discomfort because it's like, oh my, so then you hoard to not experience that discomfort. Whereas someone else might spend because buying a pedicure, getting a package on Amazon, that makes me feel better.
Like the dopamine
So
hit,
it's interesting too, when you're saying structure and like a container, it's those types of things, not so much don't spend this and only spend $100 of the, it's more about that, like you're saying, the healing and the awareness, the structure of, you know, like for me, I don't panic spend. I'm actually someone who I'll know I want something, but I'll like put it off for a bit to make sure I really want it. And then I buy it and I'm like, oh, this feels so good, because it's easy to just go and be like, oh, I want this, I want that. And then you go like, I didn't really need that. It was like that impulse buy. So maybe structures in that way, that's just one example for me. That might not work for other people, of awareness, not just a budget structure.
Yeah. For me, and for clients, I base their structure on their values. So their values become the filter. So that is a very beautiful way to rephrase or redefine what structure is.
That's really cool, because everything I do is through the core values, like even manifestation, healing. Like with my clients, I make them go through the whole authentic self training to extract their core values, because it's almost like I need to know that as we move forward. So it's really fascinating to bring it into money, and even sharing like one of my core values is health. And so for me, investing, whether it's a yoga class or if it's a personal trainer or vitamins or something, it's like that to me is really worth my money. And then other things, when it's a tank top for $10 and I don't really need it, that doesn't really fit into my values. But health is, I will put that up there as importance, you know? So that's really cool to think about. I've never really thought about it through core values. So really fun. Thank you.
You're very welcome, of course.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, I got so much out of this. I know that everybody listening, there's going to be multiple ahas. Where can we find you for them to tell you their ahas? Where can we find you online, but also to listen to your podcast? If you offer programs, I just want to hear all about your business.
So first of all, I don't want this to end. I'm having the best time. You're the best host. So thanks again for having me. So everybody can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Nadine Zumot, NADINE ZUMOT. You can go on there and tag me with your aha moments if you have any. That would be really awesome. I will reshare them all just to help everybody get inspired. My podcast is called The Money Healing Podcast, and I run a program called Create Fulfilling Abundance, and it's a 6-month program. We're going to be relaunching in January of 2024. And it's just a beautiful little program where you will learn how to heal, empower yourself with flexible, intuitive financial structures. And learn how to co-create with your intuition, with your guides, with the universe. So yeah, everybody's just welcome to find me online and, to just chat.
I love that. We'll definitely put all the links below. And I really want to acknowledge you and thank you for bringing this type of energy into the money conversation, because we are changing. We're moving a little bit away, a lot away from just the masculine and just the structure and we need the masculine, but we also need the feminine, and we need the nurturing healing, and we also need the structure. And I just love that you bring that in such a holistic way as you're talking about, and your focus on the nervous system, because everyone thinks they want money, but as you're talking about, money's not safe for everybody in the nervous system. You can want it all day, but we have to be moving through that stuff. So to really help people achieve wealth that is sustainable as well, this is where we get into that natural magnetism, that ability to manifest it forever. Like, yes, we'll always need to do healing, but when you understand it, I just thank you so much for bringing this work into the conversation, because there's so many beautiful seekers, business owners, whoever, that can't seem to master the money part. And I just love that you're bringing it in like this. And thank you so much for what you do and for everything we talked about today. This was just so awesome.
Well, you're welcome, and right back at you, because the stuff that you offer is just life-changing as well. So Not to deflect the compliment, I'm taking it in, but I
We'll
just
both
wanted to
take it
take
in.
the opportunity to say thank you as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on the Awakening Her podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between me and my guest. And if you did, we would love to hear from you. Come find us on Instagram. All the links are below in the show notes. Take a screenshot that you're listening to this episode, sharing your takeaways or your enthusiasm for the show. Tag us both over on Instagram. And if you do that, I will send you a free gift. I really do hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you in the next episode.